topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for joining again this week. We are very excited to have a great show today. I have a wonderful guest, Dr. Terry Jackson, and he actually, I have to pull up his bio, but he has done some phenomenal work in the area of organizational development and organizational transformation. He has created a new way to diagnose organizations, which I think is incredibly important. Part of being a great organizational development person or human resource person, I just spoke to a group at UNCW last night, is to have data and to have information, accurate data and accurate information, not just focus groups, thoughts, and perspectives, but real diagnosis of what's going on and what's hidden in an organization. And I think Terry brings that to the table in a way that, frankly, I haven't seen before. Terry and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm delighted to have you, Dr. Jackson, in the show. So tell me, what made you think about this, discovering the hidden consensus within an organization?
Yeah, Linda, good morning. Thank you. That is a great question. Um, you know, with my experience in organizational development, all of this was started and inspired by talking with my daughter. As
Oh,
she
very
was a
cool.
as she was a chemistry major,
Oh,
we're sitting looking at the periodic table, and she asked the question, does this concept also apply to business? And I thought
oh,
about it and I said, well, elements in the periodic table act and react to each other. So, yes, they do. And so I began to wonder, how could we create a periodic table that was related to organizations versus chemistry?
oh, I love that. I love that. So how did you go about sort of crafting this whole thing for yourself?
Well, that's a good question. I sat down and I did the old traditional thing as I started putting pen to paper and just jotting down my
Old technology,
That's right.
but it still works.
It still works. I started putting pen to paper around what my ideas were of what it would look like, how many elements would be needed. And, I was just looking to add a tool for my consultancy.
Mm.
Um, and as I began to write down ideas, and I shared some of those ideas with friends who were in the technology space, they say, "Hey, man, you have something, and I can help you build it." And so I begin to deal with words and phrases that we use on a day-to-day basis in the corporate setting, like vision and purpose and stakeholder, accountability, responsibility, inclusion, um, operational efficiency, productivity. And as I dealt with those, I said, you know what? Those are terms that could be a part of a periodic table for
Mm.
business. And so ultimately, I came up with 60 of these terms
Wow.
and created also what we call the six intelligences. And those six intelligences are around cultural intelligence, emotional intelligence, uh, transformational intelligence, of course, um, and the other three, they fit into a framework that is very similar to nature and how nature works, because we know that every organization is a living, breathing organism.
Mm,
And because
right.
they're not static and people interact all the time together, how can we make this work? And that's how it all came about, just tossing around those ideas and finally putting it to paper, having a friend build it, and so far so good.
Yeah. Well, when we were talking the other day, I didn't realize that you focused in on technology too in your PhD. And I was like, oh, well, so that makes incredible sense. Incredible sense. So I saw an analysis you did of a local business here
Mhm.
in Southport, actually, and it was very insightful, very incredible. Where have you used this, and how has it driven change for an organization? You don't
Thank
have
you.
to give
So,
the company names if unless you want to. I don't.
well, there's a healthcare system that I've used it with.
Right,
And so when I ran the scenario for you,
right.
the system that I did have and are using it with currently is a smaller system. But we went in because they were set on having transformation become a part of the DNA of their organization. And so what we did was we have three assessments that we use that helps us triangulate not only what people are saying, but underneath the surface, what people are believing
That's a
within the
big one.
organization. Yes,
Big
because
one.
I'm sure you've experienced as I have. We're in an organization. We decide that we're going to restructure, go through a transformation, and everybody seems excited outwardly
Sort of.
about it and say we need it. Yes, yes, yes. And what happens is what they truly believe is we can't go through this transformation.
We're going
We
to
are
lose our
have
jobs.
yes, yes, absolutely. And so by understanding that hidden consensus, we can begin to understand what they believe so that we can craft solutions around helping them overcome their challenges with the belief system, which we know the belief system is really the culture of the organization.
Right.
And so now we're talking about making the culture of an organization better while we're going through this transformative
Hmm.
process from caterpillar to butterfly.
Yeah, I love that expression, caterpillar to the beautiful butterfly. That's so great. Well, that's an amazing thing because you and I have worked on mergers and acquisitions, and we've gone through a lot of transformation projects in major companies.
Yes.
And getting to the bottom of what people really believe and what they're really worried about is key because people won't change if they're still fearful of what's going to happen to them. And most employers don't want to be upfront and out front about some of that stuff because they're afraid too. So, how do you address that, Terry?
Well, as I was telling someone yesterday, that has to be addressed up front because
Mm-hmm.
that is a reality. I
Mm-hmm.
remember working with an organization several years ago, and the CEO was telling the organization that they were getting ready to partner with this other organization.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the reality of it all is it wasn't a partnership.
It
They were
never is,
being,
Terry.
that's right, never is. Someone is
It
being
never is.
acquired. That's
That's
right.
exactly right.
And so they were being acquired, but the language in the organization was partnership. And so I
Mm,
finally told him one day, I said, when are you going to tell them that this is not a partnership? They are thinking that they're going to be equal to those in the same positions at the organization, when in fact, what may happen is some of these positions that they have here at this organization won't exist any longer.
right. And they're redundant.
Yes, absolutely. And there was fear of telling the people that it was going to be a they were being acquired. He continued with the language of partnership, and it didn't do well for the morale of the organization being acquired, because when they realized it, they said, well, he didn't tell us the truth. So the
Hmm.
truth in organizations with transformation initiatives should be told up front. Here are the possibilities of what 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 is going to happen, as we move along this line of transformation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Do you share the diagnosis that you do with the full organization, or how do you share it back?
Yeah, so what we do is we go in and we do this, we do three assessments that gives us great insight into culture, great insight into what they believe as an organization, insight into what the actual individual executives believe.
Mm.
When we get that insight, we go back and we do a debrief and we show them how they what they believe as individuals and what they believe as a team, and
Oh,
then what it takes.
fascinating.
Yes, and then what it takes in order to work on those beliefs so that the transformational process can be more successful. What our system also does on a real time basis is as we go through that analysis, we benchmark how they are against those within their industry. And so they
Oh,
see on a
interesting.
real, yes, they see a real time benchmarking. And then based upon the challenges that they face, it makes recommendation in real time because it is AI, um, and it is predictive analytics at the same
Mm.
time. And so
Hmm.
with that, we can go through and we can make predictions not only about their success, but we can show them predictions if they are not willing to go through the transformation, how it negatively cascades throughout the organization and the impact that it'll have by not taking the recommendations.
That's very powerful, Terry. Very, very powerful. So, do you find that the executives necessarily see things more rosy than the rest of the organization, or and how do you get alignment? So what do you see when you work with the executives? Are they in the same psychological mindset as the rest of the team in the organization?
I think it's a simple answer, and the simple answer is no.
Right. Yeah, I'm not surprised at that.
There normally is a perception gap.
Mm,
And
mm,
that perception gap is when you ask the executive team, how is the organization? They give you a rose-colored reality
you. Yep.
that their view that they're living through because they're thinking vision. How do I move this organization to the next level of performance? How do we gain more market share? So I'm looking to the future and I'm looking at it from a rose colored pair of glasses, and that's okay. But when I go to those on the front lines who are doing the actual work, the perception is different. So we have
Mm,
an assessment that actually measures that. That's how we get to the belief. Q
yeah.
methodology measures the perception system and the subjectivity of human beings. And so once we get the two from the front line as well as from the executives, we do a debriefing that includes both to
Yeah.
show them where they
Nice.
are from
Yeah.
an executive perspective as well as from a frontline perspective.
Interesting. And are people ever in denial about that on the executive level, or
You know, what they normally say, they make comments like, wow, we really
mm,
didn't understand what was going on at other levels of the organization. We were so focused on where we are here, we
mm,
lost touch with the everyday employee and what their tasks are and how those tasks move the organization along. And so, often without having some tool or tool to help them stay in touch with the everyday employee, it's easy to have a different perception because of the space that they're walking through as an executive. And so what
right.
we try to do through real-time data is always they have actually we create these dashboards
Mm,
that they can see on a daily basis real time, and then we suggest that they take the assessments on a quarterly basis. So
hmm.
everybody is always updated as to if there are perception gaps or if you've implemented where the improvements have happened or maybe where you've stalled.
Right. Yeah, that's fascinating. What a great sort of reiterative tool for senior leaders and for employees too. I mean, where have you seen, I'm sure you have, but I know this is a new tool in many ways, but have you seen big differences where alignment does come into play?
Yes. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because part of what the tool does automatically is it goes in searching for the alignment between those at different levels of organization as well as those in different departments of the
Mm,
organization. And as that alignment happens, we look at the alignment and say, okay, here's what the people are saying. Now let's look below to get back to the hidden consensus,
yeah,
because that hidden consensus now added to the alignment builds a strong, it gives you a strong picture of where you are and helps you develop a vision of where you want to go, but where you're going on the new journey. And what we call the transformation journey from caterpillar to butterfly is
right.
driven by real time data that you can see versus having to guess where we actually are. We're going to show you where you are step by step.
So do you find that's absolutely brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And do you find that there is hidden consensus in the organization that's just hasn't been surfaced, but that people have a greater sort of view and understanding and belief about what's going on in a company than is
We have,
recognized?
yes, yes, there, we have found that there's always a hidden consensus. That
Mm,
is, that is okay. We think we're saying we're a great organization, and here are the things that we're doing. But then there are people who are saying we're not great, but we are afraid to say.
mm,
And then
mm,
you have the silos.
mm-hmm,
It really comes down to being in an environment where people are fearful of saying what's on their mind for fear of retribution of
mm,
what may happen because they didn't go along with the team, right? But oftentimes we don't need people to always go along with the team. We need that divergence because that brings in the quality of thought to create better solutions.
mm, mm. Do you find that the senior executives always listen to that?
Ooh, I like these questions. These senior executives are not going to like what I have to say.
Yeah,
They're human, right? And
right,
so
exactly.
there are some who will listen uh, and listen for listen's sake without doing anything about it. There are some who will listen and say, you know what, that has a lot of value to what is to what they're saying. There's a lot of value to that. So we need to experiment or explore a little bit with what they say just to find out for ourselves. So those are those who are curious, but then there are those who say, well, hey, we're moving right along, we're doing well, you know, at this point in time, that's not applicable. And what ends up happening is later down the line, what they listened to and didn't act on comes back around
To bite
to,
them.
yes, to bite them, to have a negative impact on the organization. So we have to learn as humans and as executives that we have to be able to listen and consider what is being said because that is someone's perception of the reality in which they're working within that workplace. And that's valued how they are perceived and what they're seeing because unfortunately for many, our perceptions are a reality, but that
Yep.
doesn't necessarily mean that it's true.
Well, that's true. That's very, very true. And one of the things that, that I've learned through my career is that perceptions do drive reality, whether you like it or not. And it takes minutes, seconds for someone to have a perception of you. And once they have a perception, it takes forever to change that. It's not an overnight thing. If people have decided you're not a good leader, to change that or whatever they've decided, to change that perspective could take forever or never.
That's right.
And
That's
then
right.
it becomes a cultural norm, which is very difficult. As you and I both know, changing organizational culture is critical, if not almost impossible.
Yes. And that's because it happens at the surface. So
Right,
we take these assessments to say, okay, we're aligned or we're not misaligned. Okay, so the question is, what what is it that's causing the misalignment and why?
right.
And that's in the belief system
Mm-hmm.
that very few assessments actually measure. And I'll be real honest with you. I stumbled upon this methodology because as I wrote my dissertation, I came across Q methodology, which is an academic research methodology that measures human subjectivity and perception. And
Wow.
as I was, and it was created in 1935 by William Stevenson, who was a psychologist and a physicist. So as I was looking for a research methodology that was mixed method, that's what Q provided me, quantitative and qualitative. So
Right.
as I sat around developing this, I said, I wonder if I were to use Q methodology in this operating system, how would it work? How would it interact? And it was the exact piece that was needed because every organization is made up of human beings. Everyone has their own perception. We need to
Right.
be able to measure that to understand belief systems and how those belief systems play a role in the workplace. And so that allows us to go below the surface.
Yeah, that's really great. So what happens when the senior executives get this big aha? What do they, how do they react to that? Because a lot of them take it personally since they're leading the organization.
Yeah, they do take it personally. But what I always say to them is what we're showing you is for the greater good of the organization. And so, what are you willing to sacrifice for the greater good? And
Mm,
once we have that conversation around sacrificing what is in the greater good of the organization, and it's actually going to help his performance because the organization is going to perform better. We sit and we negotiate what the engagement is going to look like. We
mm.
find out where we show them where the key areas are the most important areas that they need to address immediately. And we go in and we use vertical AI agents to read in a read only fashion
Mm.
to begin to examine the data within their system to help them with the recommendations to move the organizational performance
Well, that's
further.
fascinating. So using the AI, I mean that because you can get data so much more quickly now. I've been using it myself. So um how do you actually do that? Go in and get the all the AI. I mean, do they give you the data or do you go in and how do you do that?
Well, these we build a vertical AI agent.
Yeah.
We get with their systems people,
Oh.
and so we they give us access to their system via our vertical agents. And say, for instance, there's a challenge in finance.
Mm,
We'll build an agent specifically around finance, what those challenges are. We connect to their system and we begin to read the data. As we read the data, we're looking for patterns. We're
right.
always looking for patterns of data, and we're always looking for um, cost efficiencies.
Mm,
The system is built that way. So as we're looking for the data around what's happening in the finance department, who's doing what types of decisions are being made, which decisions were good decisions, which decisions were not so good decisions. If you're looking at internal rate of return, because every organization has an internal rate of return, if you invest X amount of dollars, how much do you want to get back? So we take a look at all of that data and we show them the patterns in that data, what was good, what was not so good. So of course you want to go along the lines of what was good and kind of minimize or eliminate what wasn't good because it helps that performance in that department.
very good. Well, that's a lot of data to come through. And if you can get AI to do that vertically, that's, I mean, you and I, both PhDs, we've been data crunching all our professional lives, frankly.
Y-
Um, and that's a how did you develop that? How did you get AI to be able to do that?
It's interesting because I was traveling one Saturday and I decided to call a friend. And then I called a friend and I told him what I was putting together. And he said, "Man, that sounds very interesting." He says, "Have you ever considered vertical AI agents?" And at the
Hmm.
time, I really didn't know what they were.
I didn't know what, I don't know. I don't know what that is. What is it?
So it is a connector. It allows us to connect to other systems i-
Oh,
in a secured fashion
yeah.
to read the other system, read only, no manipulation of data, to
Uh-huh.
read only the data within their system. And so
Mm.
as he was talking to me about it, I really didn't know what it was. So when I finished traveling and I got off, I looked it up and I said, "Oh, this makes sense." And then he said, "I can build those." So
Mm.
that was a
Wow.
Saturday. The following Tuesday, we had a conversation. He said, "The whole system, Terry, I can build." I said,
Wow.
"Okay." And AI agents, and then it's evolved so much since then. We have the AI agents that we utilize. We've created the organizational genome, which you're familiar with the human genome of how scientists broke down the human body genetically to see how it works and how to best heal it. We use the same thing around organizational genome and leadership genome. We can break down genetically, if you will, the organization of what's working, what's not working, who works best together, who doesn't work best together, and it predicts, again, the silos that could potentially happen, how to eliminate them, and then from a leadership genome, we break down the traits that are really needed by a leader to be
Mm.
able to lead an organization, or we'll show you this is a good leader, but this leader right here will not be the leader that is needed to run the organization. They'll work well in this department, and here is why.
Mm.
We break all of that down genetically, if you will.
Yeah. Boy, that I can see where that could be threatening to some people.
It can be very threatening, but again, I go back to we're trying to do what's in the greater good of the organization
Right.
and the greater
Exactly.
good of the stakeholder and the greater good of the shareholder. So
Right.
with that in mind, um, you know, let's move forward. It might be painful now, but
Right.
it'll be fruitful when we get further along in the process.
Right. Sort of like a diet, it's painful now, but you'll feel real good when you look much better at yourself at
That's
the end.
right. That's right. That's right. That's
So
right.
Terry,
That's right.
what three things do you want people who are listening to this um, show to take away from you and your discussion?
Oh, that's a great question. Um, that I'm grateful to have created this transformational ecosystem. It came through me, um, and really at the bottom, the bottom line is what it does is it works with time, team, and money within an organization.
Mm,
How time, team, and money. How to be more productive, how to generate top line revenue, how to generate bottom line profitability, how people are being more productive, and how to build a culture that is sustainable and a culture that thrives.
yeah. Wow. Really fascinating. So how do people get a hold of you?
That's a great question. You can go to my website,
Yeah.
jcgconsultinggroup.com. You'll see the whole story of the caterpillar to the butterfly on the website. Um, you can connect with
I
me.
think your model's on there too.
Yes, the model is on the website. We also have a complimentary 7-question executive assessment that people can take, and that is PTOD
P.T. Peter,
OD
Tom, O, D. Mm, O-S
OS.com
.com. Okay.
backslash 7Q,
Oh,
because it's
back.
only 7 questions.
Oh,
It's
back.
only
I
seven.
got you.
Yeah,
Backlash
backslash
7Q.
7Q.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's
Okay.
only 7 questions. And the 7 questions, it'll give you an executive analysis of how you relate to transformation in your life and in your workplace. So, are
Wow.
you as an individual transformation, and how what you believe about it, and whether or not you think it's accomplishable in your life as well as the organization in which you work.
Wow. Wow. How great is that? That
And you
is
can find
really,
me on
really,
LinkedIn. You can find me on
yeah,
LinkedIn. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn as well.
yeah.
Terry Jackson, PhD. Yes.
Yes. Oh, Terry Jackson, PhD. Well, Terry, thank you so much for giving me the time today to really chat with you. It was wonderful. And, I think this is a really game-changing tool for organizations. And I'm glad you have it because I've always been on the data-driven side of organizational change. And, in our field, way back, we used to do the focus groups and, ask questions and you know, if there's a thing that has a place, but it's not really good organization analysis. And what
Yep.
you have is scientific. It's really directional. It's really somewhere you can hang your hat on making real change in an organization, which is exciting.
Yep.
Very
Yep. Thank you.
exciting.
So, thank you so very much. Thank you for giving me the time to interview with you, to see you again, and to talk about PTOD operating system. And you're right, it is scientific because it is built upon an academic research methodology. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and so it makes it more precise. And we like to say what we do is we align, we activate, and we architect human potential.
Wow, that's great. Wait, align. What was the next one?
Activate
Activate and
and architect
architect. Oh,
human
that's
potential.
great. That's great. That's like caterpillar to butterfly. That's terrific.
Absolutely.
That's terrific. Well, Terry, thank
Absolutely.
you so much. And I'm so glad we live in sort of very close to each other. And I'll see you soon.
See you soon, Linda. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
All
Bye
right.
bye. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I hope that you got something from this broadcast today. And see you next week. There'll be another show.